What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the newest reveals for the upcoming Duelist Nexus core set. Now, Duelist Nexus follows Cyberstorm Access in the OCG, and it looks like it's going to be a set based around 5D's, at least based on some of the anime-style cards that we're getting in this. If you've noticed, since the original, anime series ended and Rush Duel started, we've been going through rotating series of booster sets that support, different themes. Obviously, you've had sets like Lightning Overdrive with Utopia, you've had sets like Power of the Elements with Heroes, so on and so forth. So Duelist Nexus looks to be taking us back to the 5D's realm and has some already crazy support, including the first official printing of the Crimson Dragon and some new SYNCHRON cards. So, let's get into the video. Before we actually get started, I just want to thank you guys for checking out the video, and if you do enjoy the content and the conversation, please consider hitting the like button and clicking that subscribe button. Click the bell icon if you want to stay notified with all the newest things on the channel. And yeah, we are going to take a look at Yusei's new cards in this set, and there are some pretty crazy ones to talk about. So we're going to start off with SYNCHRON. This is a pretty cool art just from a design perspective. It is a level 5 light machine tuner that says if you use this card on the field as synchro material, you can treat it as a non-tuner. You can only use each of the following effects of SYNCHRON once per turn. During the main phase, you can activate this effect. You cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except synchro monsters. Also, immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon one level 4 or lower monster. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one synchro monster you control, decrease its level by up to 4. So this is pretty cool. You can treat it as a non-tuner monster, which definitely gives some credence to junk speeder plays, bringing out other tuners from the deck and then actually having a level 5 non-tuner option on the field. And then a additional normal summon is nothing to sneeze at. It does lock you into synchros for the rest of the turn, but I think there's actually a few decks that could probably benefit from this type of effect. Of course, it is a level 5 monster, so you're not going to be able to just drop it out super easily outside of dedicated Synchron decks, but still something to look at. And then the graveyard banishing effect to modify the level of a synchro will obviously help you with Excel synchro summoning and going into some bigger names. This is a pretty cool card overall, and just neat design, and cool to see more Synchron support. I know they've gotten a lot, and some more recently in, I believe, Dawn of Majesty, we had some that actually were, pretty powerful with Stardust Synchron and Synchro Overtake. But the deck is definitely not able to stand on its own yet, and some of this new support may be what needs to happen to kind of get it there. So SYNCHRON is the first reveal. Let me know what you guys think of this card in the comments down below. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? If you're a more experienced Synchron player, I'd very much, be interested to hear your thoughts on whether or not it has potential. Next up, we've got Revolution Synchron. This card is absolutely insane. I have read this one already multiple times, and it is being talked about in a lot of circles. It is a level 3 Earth Machine tuner that says if you synchro summon a Power Tool Synchro monster or a level 7 or 8 Dragon Synchro, this card in your hand can be used as material. You can only use this effect once per turn. If this card is in your graveyard and you control a level 7 or higher Synchro monster, you can send the top card of your deck to the grave, and if you do, special summon this card. And if you do that, its level becomes 1. You can only use this effect once per duel. This is almost just a better glow-up bulb in some ways. Like, glow-up bulb is an insane card, don't get me wrong, but this basically has some application in decks that can utilize it that puts it right on that same level, I think. Level 7 or 8 Dragon Synchro is a pretty common part of the Synchro pool. You can obviously go into things like Ancient Fairy Dragon, which we know is coming back off the list with its errata, but there are plenty of targets for this, and being able to use this in hand basically means that if you have any level 4 on the field, you can go into a 7, and that's pretty crazy just to think about, like, how far the Synchrons have come and how far the Synchro mechanic has been kind of power crept a little bit to the point where now we're synchroing from hand with no downsides like cards, like Eccentric Boy back in the day that would negate the effects of the Synchro. And the self-revival is just icing on the cake. You bring out a level 7, you mill, you bring this up, and when it is used as Synchro on the field, it doesn't matter what type you're bringing it out. So this card just has crazy applications. Obviously, it would be broken with Halki Fibrax if that card wasn't banned, but this Revolution Synchron is going to be almost guaranteed to be some kind of a secret rare upgrade probably in this set when we get it over here in the TCG. That just does a lot of things and has so much application. this is a wild one, so keep your eyes out for this card, and keep an eye out for other cards that could be, you know, beneficial with it. I know some people have talked about, you know, Ancient Fairy Dragon, obviously, but there is a decently large card pool that this card can be used to access, and it is not one to take lightly. All right, next up we've got Cosmic QUASAR Dragon. This is a level 12 light dragon synchro. It needs 1 tuner synchro and 2 or more non-tuner synchro monsters. Must first be special summoned with the above materials. Once per turn, you can target face-up cards on the field up to the number of monsters used as material for this card plus 1, negate their effects. This effect and its activation cannot be negated. Quick effect, you can banish this Synchro Summon card, special summon 1 Dragon Synchro monster that lists 2 or more non-tuner Synchro monsters as material from your extra deck. This is pretty cool. It is an upgraded version of shooting QUASAR Dragon, at least in some ways. The negation being non-respondable, I would normally be a little bit more hesitant about, but given the amount of resources that really need to go into bringing this card out, it is kind of warranted to have an effect that powerful, and the fact that it can shut off floodgates and other things is really, really neat. I don't know how feasible it is to make this. Someone that's more skilled with synchrons and their linear combos might be able to answer that question better than me, but just looking at it on paper and seeing that people have been able to go into 12s with some relative ease, this is a pretty damn solid option. Now, the second effect, allowing you to banish and then special summon a Dragon Synchro monster, does mean you can actually go ahead and bring out something like Shooting QUASAR Dragon with its second effect, because Shooting QUASAR Dragon says must be Synchro summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways, and this summoning effect does count as a Synchro summon, and because QUASAR does need 2 or more non-tuner Synchros, you can banish this to bring out regular Shooting QUASAR, which is just an interesting line, and I'm sure there's some other Stardust monsters and other bigger Synchros that work with that as well. I think even Cosmic Blazer Dragon, which needs 2 or more non-tuner synchro monsters, would work for this application. So plenty to look at there, but this is a pretty cool boss monster that can negate a bunch of stuff and then banish itself to bring out something else. And of course, that's just a pretty neat application to have. So this is a really, really good card, and I'm not sure, you know, where it falls in terms of what the deck's gonna play, simply because you have such a limited amount of space in the extra deck, and there's just more and more synchros coming out, but it's worth keeping an eye on, and it's definitely really cool from a design perspective. Next up is the Crimson Dragon. This is finally getting an official, actual, real card printing. We've gotten Ultimaeus Tzolk'in and the Duel Links Dragon, the prize card and the jump promo respectfully, but this is an actual titled version of the Crimson Dragon, and it is really, really cool looking. I adore the artwork on this. I always thought the Crimson Dragon was cool and a bit of a soft spot for 5D's, so it's nice to see 5D's getting some love here. Maybe they'll rewave the 5D's Legendary Collection. That'd be fucking sweet. But the Crimson Dragon is a level 12 light dragon synchro that says 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monsters. So it is just a generic level 12, which is nice to see. If this card is special summoned, you can add 1 spell or trap that mentions the Crimson Dragon from your deck to your hand. Quick effect, you can target 1 level 7 or higher synchro monster on the field, except the Crimson Dragon. Return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon 1 Dragon Synchro monster with the same level as that monster from your extra deck. This is treated as a Synchro summon. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. So we'll take a look in a minute at the spell and traps that it can search. It's a relatively small search pool, but still a couple of cards that are coming out in this set that are viable targets for it. But that quick effect, being able to replicate a Synchro monster on the field in general, does give you access to some other things in the extra deck that might be a little harder to summon. So this is going to have, you know, at least some use in various Synchro strategies, because there really aren't any restrictions in terms of what you can use him to bring out. It just has to copy the level, and technically speaking, it can target a monster on either side of the field. So that's interesting if you're playing in a, you know, if synchros do start to become more prevalent outside of just, you know, Sword Soul and other things that were randomly playing it. The card pool for this card is pretty large, and there's definitely going to be plenty of testing and different combos and stuff that come out, and we'll be able to take a bit more in-depth look at it later, once, you know, people have had a chance, myself included, to go through and actually do some of those combo line testings. But this card is really, really cool, and just seems like a really fun synchro option that gives you the ability to go in a ton of different directions, but also just, you know, to maybe cheese out some dragons that are a little bit harder to get otherwise, and it is treated as a synchro summon, so it will technically end up bypassing a lot of other restrictions that, you know, certain synchro monsters have where they need to be summoned a certain way. Alright, next up we've got SYNCHRO Overtop, which has some absolutely incredible artwork, very reminiscent of the card Yusei used against, I think it was Z1 or Zone, whatever, in the ending of 5D's. I can't remember if it was actually this card or just a similarly styled card, but I know he used it to modify levels. This card says, target any number of level 7 and or 8 dragon synchro monsters in your grave. Special summon them in defense position, but negate their effects. Also, their levels become 1, and you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except synchros. When your synchro monster is destroyed by battle, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon the Crimson Dragon from your extra deck. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. So clearly the intent is to bring back a bunch of your bigger synchros, make them all level 1, and then you can use plenty of tuner synchro and regular synchro monsters to go into the new Cosmic QUASAR or Shooting QUASAR or Shooting Majestic Star Dragon, I think is another one. There's plenty of different big beefy synchro monsters that require non-tuner synchros as material, and this allows you a large number of, you know, access to them while locking you into synchros, which I don't think is going to be a huge deal for most decks that are going synchro heavy. I think a lot of the synchron strategies and stuff are probably only going to be playing synchros with, you know, maybe a couple of possible exceptions. So the drawback's not that bad, and it is searchable by Crimson Dragon, so if you're playing Crimson Dragon, I don't know why you wouldn't play at least a copy of this. Not to mention that, you know, the graveyard recursion, it's okay. I mean, the battle destruction is not something we're going to see happen super frequently, but it's still a neat bonus, and this is essentially a synchro version of Soul Charge that allows you to, you know, bring back a bunch of things and hopefully do stuff, and of course it does bring them back in defense mode, so it's not like you can, like, use it to OTK, but it does give you the ability to modify the levels in an effective way to make it easier to summon some of your boss monsters. What do you guys think of this card? This is obviously a classic card from 5D's, and yeah, it seems neat, and I like that it's searchable, so it does help it to stand out. Alright, we've got Synchro World next, and this is a field spell. It very much reminds me of, like, the speed counters, some of the speed counter cards from, like, the video games and stuff. But it says, each time a monster is synchro summoned, place 2 signal counters on this card. You can remove 4, 7, or 10 signal counters from your field to activate one of these effects. If you remove 4, you can increase or reduce the level of a face-up monster you control by 1. You can remove 7 to special summon a tuner from your graveyard, and you can remove 10 to special summon a synchro monster from your graveyard. If this card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon the Crimson Dragon from your extra deck. It's not a hard once per turn or anything, which is kind of cool. It's just, you know, how many synchros are you really going to get out? You can stack the counters up on this. Obviously, you're going to have to, you know, remove a lot to do anything. You get into the 7 and 10 effects, and then you have some serious combo potential, but that's again, you know, that's going to require a minimum of 4, I think, synchro summons to get to 7, or 5 to get to 10, so at least it does have that balancing. This does feel very Speed Duel-esque, not like the new Speed Duel, like the actual Speed Duel from 5D's, and it seems like, obviously, they tried to replicate the speed counter system. I like this a lot. I mean, again, I don't know how much it's really going to see play, but it does have the built-in protection effect where you get to cheese the Crimson Dragon out, so there is that going for it. I'm kind of curious to see what some other people think about these and whether or not these cards really kind of fall in line with what Synchron players are looking for. I do plan to do some testing myself on these as well. I just haven't had a chance to get into it yet, so we're reviewing the cards as they are on paper, and we can certainly elaborate more on them a bit when we have a chance to see them in action. And finally for this video, we've got Scrap Iron Idol. It's a normal trap, and it has a really cool scrap version of the Crimson Dragon. I just like the artwork and sort of the callback to the other Scrap Iron cards. It says target one level 7 or 8 dragon. It says target one of your level 7 or 8 dragon synchro monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. Special summon it, but return it to the extra deck during the end phase. Also, after that, set this card face down instead of sending it to the graveyard. If this set card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon the Crimson Dragon from your extra deck. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. So falling in line with the Scrap Iron sort of line of cards, this may be the best one though. A once per turn essentially revival of a banished or graveyarded dragon synchro, meaning things like bestials that might banish the cards from your grave or called by the grave, whatever. You have ways to kind of play around that and get those back, and most notably it doesn't negate the effects of the monster it summons, which means you do have some, you know, interesting things you can do just from that perspective. Putting it back to the extra deck is kind of neat too, because if it's Engrave or Banished, it goes back to the extra deck, assuming you don't synchro with it or something. And then, of course, if you do synchro with it, you can use this again next turn. It's probably going to be a card the opponent wants to get rid of, and if they do pop it, then, you know, you get to bring the Crimson Dragon out, which does open up other combo lines for you. So it's pretty neat. You know, a lot of Graveyard Revival nowadays isn't the most practical because traps are just inherently slower with a few exceptions, but I do think this does have, you know, a bit of a niche potential, especially because of the built-in protection that it has. If, you know, it's destroyed, you do get something out of it. So it's worth looking at. I'm not really sure how many you'd want to play. I would imagine one at the most, but maybe people feel differently about it. So let me know what you guys think of these cards overall and whether or not you think they're going to be good. I know for a fact Revolution Synchron is wild, but some of these other cards are a bit more up in the air. I'm excited to get a chance to play around with them at some point and see what you can really do. But in the meantime, thank you guys for checking out the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.